The party guests exchanged uncomfortable glances as Karen dramatically dialed 911, her acrylic nails clicking against her phone screen. Michael stepped back, hands slightly raised to show he was no threat, despite Karen's theatrical performance beginning to unfold. "Yes, emergency services. I need help immediately." Karen's voice trembled on cue. "There's an unstable man threatening me and my guests at our beach property. He claims he owns our beach and is demanding money to let us stay." The breathtaking reversal of their actual interaction left Michael momentarily speechless. One of the male guests, a silver-haired man in an expensive polo shirt, stepped forward with the confidence of someone used to solving problems with his wallet. "What seems to be the issue here? Perhaps we can sort this out like reasonable people." "The issue," Michael said evenly, "is that this is my private property. I have owned it for 2 years, and these people are trespassing. Mrs. Westbrook has refused to leave and is now filing a false police report." Karen covered the phone with her hand. "Richard, this man just showed up making wild claims. We've been coming to this spot for years. You were here with us last summer." Richard looked confused. "I thought that was the beach near Pelican Point." Karen's expression flickered momentarily before she doubled down. No, this exact spot. Remember, the kids built that huge sandcastle right over there." She pointed vaguely toward the shoreline. The 911 dispatcher's voice was audible through the phone asking for clarification. Karen immediately returned to her victim performance. "Yes, I'm still here. I'm afraid for our safety." He's becoming increasingly agitated. Michael's phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from his neighbor down the beach. "Saw cars at your place. Everything ok? Trespassers again?" The drone suddenly swooped low, causing Michael to duck instinctively. Karen's son laughed from behind his controller. "Got that on video. Looks pretty agitated to me." Tom finally found his voice. "Jason, land the drone now." "But Dad?" "Now Jason." Something in Tom's tone made the teenager comply, though not without an exaggerated eye roll. The wail of sirens grew audible in the distance. Karen's performance reached new heights as she added details to her fictional account. "Yes, he's been lurking around watching us all afternoon. I think he might have been drinking." Michael pulled up his property documentation on his phone, sending a quick text to his neighbor. "Trespassers hosting party. Call police on me. If you could come verify I've owned this place for 2 years, that would help." The arriving guests stood awkwardly between the beach setup and their cars, clearly sensing they'd walked into something unexpected. A woman in designer sunglasses whispered to her companion, "Didn't Karen say this was her family's beach house?" As the sirens grew louder, Tom approached Michael, keeping his voice low. "Look, this has gotten out of hand. We can pack up and go." "It's too late for that," Michael replied, watching as Karen paced dramatically, still narrating to the dispatcher. "Your wife just reported me for threatening your family on my own property. We'll need to sort this out properly now." Tom's shoulders slumped. "She gets like this. She can't ever be wrong about anything. Once she commits to a story." The first police cruiser appeared at the end of the driveway, lights flashing. Karen immediately waved her arms as though flagging down a rescue helicopter, her designer cover-up billowing in the sea breeze. "Over here. Thank goodness you're here, officer," she called out, already rushing toward the vehicle. "He's right there." Michael stood his ground, documents in hand, bracing himself for what would undoubtedly be an evening far different from the peaceful beachfront retreat he had planned. Sergeant Pattle's cruiser rolled up just as Karen was mid-rant about calling her attorney. The sergeant stepped out, adjusting his hat against the setting sun, and surveyed the scene with immediate recognition washing over his face. "Mrs. Westbrook," he said, approaching directly. "I thought the address sounded familiar." Something in Karen's expression shifted, a flicker of uncertainty breaking through her indignation. She recovered quickly. "Finally, someone in charge. These officers are completely mishandling the situation. I demand." "Mrs. Westbrook," Patel interrupted firmly, "this is the 3rd beach property incident this summer." Tom stepped forward, confusion evident on his face. "Third? What does he mean, Karen?" Sergeant Patel consulted his tablet. We have documented incidents at the Sanderson property on July 4th and the Mitchell beachfront on Memorial Day weekend. Both involved claims of traditional use rights. Both resulted in 911 calls claiming harassment, and both involved. He looked pointedly at the Range Rover with its custom plates. The same vehicle. That's preposterous. Karen sputtered, but her performance had lost its conviction. Michael's former neighbor Jim Collins approached, recognition dawning. Wait a minute. Were you the woman who set up a graduation party on our beach 2 summers ago? Claimed you were friends with our cousins from Connecticut. Karen's daughter finally emerged from the Range Rover, her face flushed with embarrassment. Mom, please. Can we just go? Not yet, Alyssa, Karen snapped, before turning back to the officers. This is all a simple misunderstanding. My husband handles our vacation properties, and he must have confused the locations. Tom's face reddened. What vacation properties? We don't own any beach property, Karen. We haven't since we sold the condo last year. Tom, Karen hissed. The uncomfortable silence that followed was broken by Officer Chen, who approached with her phone. Sergeant, you might want to see this. It's Mrs. Westbrook's Instagram page. The screen displayed dozens of photos tagged #OurBeachHouse and #Westbrook Summer Estate, showing Karen's family at various beachfront locations, including Michael's property from the previous summer. One caption read, "Another perfect weekend at our beloved family beach house. 17 years of memories and counting." Karen, what the hell is this? Tom asked, his voice suddenly hard as he viewed the posts. We sold the condo to cover the credit card debt. You told everyone we were renting places. Karen's carefully constructed facade began crumbling visibly. She turned to Sergeant Patel, switching tactics. This is a private family matter. Surely we can resolve this without any formal charges. My husband's company does significant business in this county. Patel remained unmoved. Mrs. Westbrook, we have multiple documented instances of trespassing, filing false police reports, and now potential property damage to protected dune areas. He gestured toward the volleyball net stakes driven into the fragile ecosystem Michael had been restoring. Mom, Alyssa said quietly, remember what Dr. Phillips said about facing reality. Karen ignored her daughter, frantically scrolling through her phone contacts. I'm calling Charles right now. This is completely unacceptable treatment. Charles Durbin, the county commissioner? Patel asked. He's actually the one who filed the complaint about the Mitchell Beach incident. They're his in-laws. The color drained from Karen's face as she realized there would be no rescue from her usual tactics. Her elaborate social facade, carefully constructed across multiple summers of beach trespassing, was collapsing around her in real time. Michael stood stunned, clutching his now damp property documents. The setting sun cast long shadows across what should have been his moment of triumph, his first real evening at his hard-earned sanctuary. Look, he tried again, keeping his voice even. There must be some misunderstanding. I purchased this property from the Collins estate 2 years ago. I have the deed, property tax receipts, and survey markers clearly indicating. The Collins never owned this beach access. Karen interrupted with absolute conviction, as though she could rewrite reality through sheer force of will. This has always been public access that our family has traditionally used. Michael glanced at Tom, hoping for some rationality, but the man was meticulously rearranging items in their portable bar, avoiding eye contact at all costs. The teenagers had completely different reactions. The daughter typed furiously on her phone, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, while her brother adjusted the controls on his drone, deliberately hovering it closer to Michael. Your son needs to land that drone, Michael said, his patience wearing thin. It's illegal to fly it over private property without permission. The boy snorted. It's not your property. Karen placed a protective hand on her son's shoulder. Jason is a certified drone pilot. He's documenting our annual beach tradition for his college applications. She raised her voice slightly, as though speaking to a dim-witted service worker. Now, if you don't mind, our guests will be arriving soon. The senator hates to be kept waiting. Michael felt his chest tighten. He'd dealt with entitled civilians during his military service, but this was different. This was his land, his dream, his reward for years of sacrifice. "There won't be any party here tonight," he said firmly. "I need you to pack up and leave immediately." Karen's face transformed into a mask of indignation. "Excuse me, do you have any idea who you're talking to?" "Yes, a trespasser," Michael replied, pulling out his phone. "If you won't leave willingly, I'll call the sheriff." Sensing the shift in power, Karen changed tactics with alarming speed. Her voice became honey-sweet, her stance more relaxed. "Listen, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Perhaps we can work something out? We've already invited everyone, sent out location pins. It would be so embarrassing to cancel now." She lowered her voice conspiratorially. "We'd be happy to make a donation for the use of the beach tonight. Cash, $500? The blatant attempt at bribery left Michael speechless. Before he could respond, 3 more vehicles pulled into his driveway, a Mercedes SUV and 2 luxury sedans. Well-dressed couples emerged, carrying wine bottles and gourmet food platters. "Karen, this spot is to die for," called a woman in white linen pants. "How did you find this hidden gem?" Karen shot Michael a warning glance before sweeping over to greet her friends. "Darlings, welcome to our little slice of paradise." Michael watched in disbelief as strangers invaded his property, trampling the native beach grass he'd spent months restoring. When a caterer began setting up a portable pizza oven directly beneath the overhang of his cabin, a clear fire hazard, he'd had enough. He marched toward Karen, who was now holding court among her guests, champagne flute in hand. "This has gone too far. Everyone needs to leave now, or I'm calling the authorities." The party fell silent. Karen's face hardened as she set down her glass with deliberate slowness. "I believe," she said loudly, reaching for her phone, "that I'll be the one calling the authorities." The following morning, Michael sat on his cabin porch watching the sunrise over the ocean, the peaceful moment he'd been dreaming about for 2 years. The beach was pristine. No trace remained of the previous day's chaos. The officers had supervised the Westbrook's cleanup effort, ensuring even the volleyball net stakes were carefully removed from the fragile dune ecosystem. His phone buzzed with a text from Jim Collins. "Sorry again about yesterday's excitement. Welcome to beach life. Dinner at our place next weekend." Michael smiled, realizing the bizarre incident had accelerated his integration into the coastal community more effectively than months of normal neighborly interactions could have. By mid-morning, Michael was surprised by a knock at his door. Tom Westbrook stood on the porch alone, looking haggard but resolute. "I didn't expect to see you again," Michael said cautiously. Tom held up his hands. "I'm just here to apologize properly and to give you this." He handed over an envelope. "It's a certified check for the dune restoration. A landscaper specializing in native coastal plants will contact you. It's already arranged and paid for." Michael accepted the envelope. "Thank you. That's unexpected. Karen and I are separating," Tom continued, staring out at the ocean. "Yesterday was a wake-up call that's been a long time coming. The beach house fantasy was just the tip of the iceberg." "I'm sorry to hear that," Michael said genuinely. "Don't be. The kids have been begging me to address it for years." Tom paused. "Speaking of which, Alyssa asked if she could volunteer with any dune restoration efforts you're planning. She's applying to environmental science programs and could use the experience." Later that week, a registered letter arrived from the County Coastal Commission. Michael had been expecting a standard property inspection, so he was surprised to find an invitation to join their Citizen Advisory Board for dune protection, with a handwritten note mentioning how the Westbrook incident had highlighted the need for better education about private beachfront stewardship. 3 weeks later, Michael hosted his first gathering at the beach cabin. Bill and his wife brought homemade clam chowder, the Collins family supplied wine, and several other neighbors arrived bearing housewarming gifts. Most surprising was the arrival of Alyssa Westbrook, carrying a rare native beach grass she'd propagated herself. "Mom's doing community service at the state park," she explained when Michael asked about her family. "Dad said to tell you the security cameras were installed yesterday." By summer's end, Michael's modest cabin had become an unofficial hub for the local conservation community. The Karen incident had transformed from an unpleasant confrontation into a neighborhood legend, retold with increasing embellishment at community bonfires. The final chapter came in October, when Michael received a Community Impact Award from the Coastal Preservation Society. As he accepted the small plaque, he spotted a familiar face at the back of the room. Karen Westbrook, quietly placing native plaid seedlings into gift bags for attendees. Her court-mandated community service vest a bright orange against her subdued clothing. Their eyes met briefly. She gave him a small, embarrassed nod before returning to her task. Michael realized that sometimes the most entitled hurricane could leave behind unexpected growth in its wake, both for restored dune grasses and for the community that rallied to protect them. Officer Rodriguez remained stone-faced as Karen's performance reached theatrical heights. She gestured dramatically toward Michael, her voice breaking at calculated intervals. He just appeared out of nowhere, demanding we leave our family beach spot. When we refused, he became aggressive. My children are traumatized. The teenagers, far from appearing traumatized, looked mortified. The daughter had retreated to the Range Rover, while the son pretended to be deeply interested in his drone's control panel. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down so I can get accurate information," Officer Rodriguez said with practiced patience. His partner, Officer Chen, was already taking statements from confused party guests who were quietly beginning to gather their belongings. "Mr. Williams, may I see those documents again?" Rodriguez asked, gesturing Michael toward the cabin porch, away from Karen's audience. As they walked, Michael spotted his neighbor Bill making his way down the beach, accompanied by an elderly man Michael recognized as the former property caretaker. Inside the cabin, Rodriguez examined the property records methodically. "How long did you say you've owned this property?" 2 years and 3 months, Michael replied. "Purchased from the Collins estate. I've been renovating it slowly, just finished replacing the roof last month." Rodriguez nodded, making notes. "And prior to today, have you had any interaction with the Westbrooks?" "Never met them before," Michael said, "though I received a letter from Coastal Development Group about 6 months ago offering to buy the property. The letterhead had Westbrook as Executive VP. Rodriguez's eyebrow raised slightly. Interesting coincidence. Through the window, they could see Karen now sitting dramatically in a beach chair, being fanned by one of her increasingly uncomfortable-looking friends. Tom stood apart, checking his watch repeatedly. "Officer, I believe I can provide some context," came a voice from the doorway. Bill and the elderly caretaker, Frank, had arrived. Frank shuffled forward, leaning on his cane. "I worked for the Collins family for 30 years before they sold to Mr. Williams. Those folks," he pointed toward Karen's group, "have been trying to use this beach illegally for years. Old Mr. Collins chased them off at least 3 times that I know of. They always claimed they thought it was public access." Rodriguez's radio crackled. His partner's voice came through. "You're going to want to hear this. Several guests are saying they were invited to the Westbrook Beach House, but are now confused because there's no house." As if summoned by cosmic timing, a silver Tesla pulled into the drive. An older couple emerged, looking confused at the police presence. "Michael," the woman called out, "is everything all right? We got your message about a housewarming, but it looks like we've arrived at a bad time." "Elaine, Jim," Michael greeted the former property owners. "Perfect timing, actually." Karen's face drained of color as she recognized the newcomers. Officer Rodriguez stepped outside, notepad in hand. "Mr. and Mrs. Collins, I presume? I'd appreciate your confirmation of some details." 20 minutes, and several verified documents later, Rodriguez returned to where Karen now sat in stony silence, her party guests having mostly departed with murmured excuses. "Mrs. Westbrook," he began formally, "I've confirmed that this property legally belongs to Mr. Williams and has for over 2 years. My partner has taken statements from several witnesses who confirm you claimed this was your family property." Karen straightened her spine. "There's been a misunderstanding. I never claimed to own." "We have your 911 call recorded, ma'am," Rodriguez interrupted, his patience visibly thinning. "You specifically refer to this as our beach property, and made several false claims about Mr. Williams's behavior. "I want to speak to your supervisor immediately," Karen demanded, reaching for her phone again. Rodriguez glanced at his watch. "That's your right. Sergeant Patel is already en route. However, I should inform you that filing a false police report is a misdemeanor in this state."